The Oz factor is the idea that, much like Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, during certain points people can leave this plane of existence. For example, if you disassociate too hard, you can cross over to another nearby parallel universe, or at least a universe between universes. All the examples that I found in this were such as whenever you enter a building where it seems like none of the workers are there who should be there, or if you're ever walking down the street and interactions seem incredibly odd for a small amount of time, this could be signs that you are in a sort of space between spaces.
Unreal Engine 5.1 pretty much proves we're living in a simulation. I mean, just look at it. These graphics just keep getting better and they're seriously starting to trick my brain. According to simulation theory, if we ever get to a point in which we can't tell video game graphics apart from reality, and we're clearly starting to get there, then that essentially 100% confirms we are currently living in a simulation. The idea here is that any civilization advanced enough to create a VR world that is a one-to-one replica to reality will inevitably make such a simulation of the entire universe, complete with sentient life that believes itself to be real, just like you and me. So if we end up making a simulation that is a one-to-one replica of reality, including planets, humans, physics, the entire universe, then that simulation that we make is also guaranteed to make its own simulation since it was simulated after us. Think simulation meets Inception, a simulation inside of a simulation. So then if that's the case, this pattern of creating simulations within simulations will repeat forever inside this inevitable simulation chain. So then after all this infinite simulation nonsense, we essentially have one base reality and an infinite amount of simulated realities. Which means the chances of this current reality we're living in is the base reality is 1 over infinity. Which for those of you who don't understand math, 1 over infinity is 0%. So there is a 0% chance that we're living in the base reality, which is the only real reality, and a 100% chance that we're living in a simulated one. Yo, did that make sense? Because I don't even know this rabbit hole we just went down. Unplug from the Matrix, bro.
So you probably have seen this. It's Chile sinkhole. Grows large enough to swallow France Arc de Triomphe, right? France's Arc de Triomphe. Look at that thing. Then I found this. Massive sinkhole reopens in Florida. Look at all these pictures. Look how round that is. Then you've probably seen all these holes. You know, it's the same place in China where the big forest was. See? Scientists find a forest growing inside a giant newly discovered sinkhole, right? So, if they keep showing us this, well, you know how they show things to us in movies and shows? Have you seen this show? The Outer Range? It's where they have this hole in their pasture. And spoiler alert, if you haven't watched it, close your ears, but it leads to different dimensions, different worlds. Although it's not like a sinkhole, it's a void in their pasture. But then there's this. Have you seen this? La Brea? This big old sinkhole in Los Angeles? A massive sinkhole opens up in the middle of Los Angeles, separating a family between two worlds. So if we have all these sinkholes, perhaps the Earth is not like this, or this, but maybe more like this, this, or this.
Then maybe.
Maybe the world is like this. But you know what no one's asking is, why are they so round? Why do they have to be perfect circles here? Maybe the one in China isn't, but look at all of them. Right? Look at that. Seems like there was an article that said maybe like aliens were putting like lasers down in the ground, but look at this explanation. A gaping perfectly circular sinkhole appeared Sunday in Guatemala City, right? And look, pause to read. It's funny because it says, if it wasn't caused by aliens, how did the sinkhole form? Where did its insides go, and why the heck is it so round? Well, here's your answer. Most of it eroded and washed to the bottom of the hole long before the final collapse into an open hole. When the hole opens, the surface material simply drops to the bottom. Why the heck is it so round? Holes often occur when the dissolution of bedrock results in a surface depression that collects water. As the depression gathers more water, the water leaks downward and eats away at more bedrock. Eventually, a vertical circular hole forms straight through the bedrock. What do you think? Why are they so round? And don't be like, 'cause they're holes.
Now, I thought this sounded absurd at first, but just hear me out. So in New Orleans, there were actual living vampires. In the 1930s, two brothers, John and Wayne Carter, were sent to jail for murdering 9 people. But the weird thing is, all the people they murdered were drained of all their blood. Not only that, after these two brothers died, their bodies mysteriously vanished from their funeral. And a lot of people still say that they see them till this day. But it gets weirder. In 1984, 9 other people were drained of blood again in the same area. I would also like to mention, in this specific area, the missing persons rate is very high. Something isn't adding up here. What do you guys think? Are vampires real? Let me know down in the comments.
If you ever see fish raining from the sky during a storm, you need to get inside immediately. So fish rain is a phenomenon that some people question if it's real or fake, but according to multiple sources, the ability of small animals to shower down from the sky is very possible. And it's actually happened in history, like the 3-day fish rain in Singapore back in 1861. And more recently, the worm rain that happened in 2011 in Norway. And how this happens is when water spouts spin up to 100 miles per hour. They can suck up fish up to the sky and then make them fall back to the ground.
A story to tell you. There's a legend in the Philippines called the Aswang. It's like a vampire like demon creature that a lot of the people in the Philippines think is real. The CIA actually used that like against the Philippines to like stop the rebel groups. So what they would do is they would see any of like the soldiers like that and they would kill them and put 2 holes in their necks, and then they will them upside down and let the drain out so there's no more. And then they'll have like bodies line up on the street, on like a busy street or busy area, and people will get so scared like, oh, there's actually like a vampire monster outside. It scared the rebels so much that they actually like signed a peace treaty.
That's a really good tactic.
That's some OD.
That is OD. Using their superstition against them.
UFO crashes and fighter jets come to the scene immediately. This polar shift is letting all our ancestors back in.
Where's them? It's wrong. OMG, there's people out there looking. Where'd it go? I heard a loud crash. Wow.
One thing I really want your generation to embrace is that the Earth is a closed system. We cannot leave the Earth. There's no place to go.
Rockets don't have brakes. It literally stopped. All of that angular momentum from the rotation of the rocket and the linear momentum from flying up just stopped.
It's a long fly ball going back, and the ball shatters the sky, bringing the ocean itself down into the stadium. Oh, Simpson just broke this dream's reality wide open.
This year, our world has been so wild that people think that this world is shifting. We had multiple sinkholes open up, one in specific revealed an ancient forest. The ice in Antarctica has been melting double as fast as originally thought, which has allowed some people to discover strange metallic objects sticking out of the ice. Some of the driest places in the world has been getting water all of a sudden. And while major flooding has been running rampant in places like Australia and Venezuela, droughts have been happening in major rivers like the Euphrates and the Mississippi River. These strange occurrences all over the world has led to some pretty crazy theories, from some people theorizing that our lands and our poles are shifting to the point where places that are usually cold will become warm and places that are usually warm will become cold, to others believing that this is all choreographed somehow and that this is leading to the Great Reset. Now, no one knows for sure what's going on in our world, but I did find an interesting article that talks about how all land on Earth is smashing together into a new supercontinent. But what do you think?
Probably. The idea behind the simulation theory is that none of this is real, and what we're actually experiencing is a kind of computer-generated simulation. And before you jump to the conclusion that there's no way you would fall for a simulation, your brain doesn't see, doesn't move, doesn't feel. You have body parts that collect that data sensory, which your brain then translates so that you can have an experience. Even though this technology is kind of crude, it doesn't take much to trick your senses into thinking that you're about to fall, for example. People like to put the odds at about 50-50, because we can't prove that it's true just as much as we can't prove that it's not. It could explain a couple of things, like the arbitrary speed limit of the universe, which is the speed of light, but also maybe the Mandela effect, which is a collective false memory, named after Nelson Mandela, who for some reason a lot of people thought was dead for decades. Some other examples are Looney Tunes, Pikachu, and I don't care what you say, I still call it Jiffy. Solipsism is the philosophical idea that you are the only one can be sure exists, because you can't remove your mind and put it into someone else, so how could you prove that everyone is as real as you? Most of my friends who work in IT, for the government, NASA, SpaceX, most of them believe we're in a simulation.
The men in black are real. For decades, people have reported encountering these strange men after they witness a UFO. In many cases, they show up at witnesses' houses in vintage black cars to ask bizarre and intimidating questions. There's also something strange about them, as they appear devoid facial features, or are often sickly pale, and act almost robotic with their movements. It's said that these are either government agents, or aliens trying to cover up UFO activity. That is why many believe